And welcome to another Nothing Like a Good Book. Thank you for the emails and thank you for the nice messages we've been receiving in reference to people enjoying the show. Thank you for that. You can always go to YouTube as well and hear the shows there and lots of other, your popular podcast platforms, wherever you like to go to. Now, this particular book is called Great Joys and Great Sorrows. It's by Michael M. Meguid. It's the fourth volume, in fact, in Michael's sweeping autobiographical series, A Surgeon's Tale, chronicling his transformation from a young, idealistic immigrant doctor into a fully trained surgeon within the crucible of Harvard's elite hospital system in the 1970s. Now, there's a lot to it. It's a personal memoir, medical history. There's lots of surgical drama in it. It goes very deep. But the narrative begins with Meguid's wife, Victoria, and transatlantic journey came from London to Boston back in 1970, carrying only their medical training, 2 steamer trunks, and would you believe, just $48. Their marriage, which was already strained from separate internships and cultural stresses, while it faces new challenges as they adapt to American life with no support system, limited funds, and grueling medical schedules. We really don't know in a lot of cases what these doctors go through. And the narrative shifts dramatically when he joins the ward service under the legendary Chief Resident Burley, a Vietnam-hardened surgeon who becomes Meguid's first true mentor in America. No doubt he can tell us a lot more about that. So Michael M. Meguid, welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much. I'm very appreciative of your invitation.
You have come a long way since 1970, haven't you?
Yes.
Great joys, great sorrows. Ultimately becomes it's a testament really to resilience, compassion, and the transformative power of surgical apprenticeship. It is a vivid tribute to the patients, mentors, and personal trials that shaped you, the immigrant physician, during, I would say, one of the most formative and unforgiving periods of your life. Would you agree with that?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. So let's talk about Book 4. You know, it explores the complex rituals of medical hierarchy. We hear a little bit about this, but not a lot as outsiders. The often brutal morbidity and mortality conferences. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about those. The tension between surgical tradition and evolving science. Share a little about that for our listeners, would you? Put all that together for me.
Right. When I came from London, in England, medicine is steeped in hierarchy, tradition, and a sense of formality. Whereas when I came to America, I found a very different world. It was fast-moving, more competitive, often driven by ambition and innovation. And the American system demanded not only competence, but endurance. And I learned to push beyond fatigue, to think independently, and to speak up in environments where rank could not be a defining matter. Yeah, that's important. What I hear you saying is you just want to get the job done. You're good at what you do, but you don't want any red tape, slowing it all down and having people die on you, right? Correct, yes.
There you go. I know it's pretty short, but I admire you so much to come to another country. I mean, I'm from another country, but and I'm an immigrant, I guess, from Australia, illegally, I might add. But at the end of the day, did you hear that? Oh, no one's knocking on the door, thank God. $48, not a lot of bickies. What was the stresses? I mean, what happened in England for you and your missus to be, so strained at this time?
Well, I won a scholarship to go to Mass General. And I came over and I was impressed by the way surgeons were trained in America. At that time, such a systematic way of training surgeons by rotating them through different disciplines did not exist. And I thought the best way to really become a competent surgeon was to be trained in America. And then when I made it clear that I really wanted to do some research as well. They said, well, you don't need Mass General. You need to go to the Peter Ben Brigham Hospital, which is now called, of course, the Brigham and Women's.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I went for an interview. And in fact, my chief there didn't know me from Adam. He had just come back from New Zealand. He was jet-lagged and hungover, and he interviewed me, asked me the usual formulaic questions, and said, okay, we have a job for you. We can start in July. And this was November, and I said,
Whoa.
That's fine.
That's a long, but this is November. You said July. That's another 7 months.
Yes. Yes, I had to go back to England to finish my medical school and do my internship.
Okay.
And so, in fact, it was 3 years between the first interview and my actually starting.
Okay. Well, that's how it all came about. Now, A Surgeon's Tale and Great Joys. I mean, as a surgeon, I don't know where you found time to even write what you've been doing. This is book 4. Great Joys,
Yes.
Great Sorrows in the series A Surgeon's Tale. As part 4 of A Surgeon's Tale, let me ask you this, Michael. What role does this book play in the overall narrative?
I think it is a story, one that defines the character of my life. My years as a young surgeon training at Harvard, as you mentioned, in 1970, and learning the difference between how one was trained in England and how one was trained in America. And the latter at the time was more impressive and more demanding. So it's more of a it is more than a medical memoir. It's also a human story of an immigrant striving to belong, not only to the medical community in Boston, but also overall in society in America. When we arrived, we had no credit card. I didn't even know what that was.
Right.
And we had very little funds, so that my wife and I would sell our blood every month to get some money. And we had no car. And as you mentioned, Burley was a wonderful, mature guy who realized that I really came here for a specific purpose, to learn and to serve. And he said to me, "You don't have a car?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, it's 10 o'clock at night now. You can't walk home." I said, "Yeah, it's okay." He said, No, you'll get mugged. Go to the chief tomorrow morning and ask him for a loan for a car. And I said, "I can't do that." He said, "No, tell him I sent you." So I did go to the chief in the morning, and he said, "What kind of car do you want? Or are you thinking of buying?" I said, "A Volkswagen." He said, "How much is it?" I said, $2,000. He said, "Well, come back tomorrow." Next day I went back, and he gave me a personal check for $2,000 so I could at least be mobile.
Well, I've
And
got to ask you, this was when? What year?
1970. It was in July 1970.
That's right. Yeah. So a car was it a new car?
Oh, yeah, it was a new car.
For $2,000. Wow.
Yes.
God, things have changed. Yeah, I had a VW. Did you have a Bug, or what did you have?
Yes, I did indeed.
I had a Beetle too. Great cars. Economically run on the smell of an oil rag, as they say,
Yeah.
How did your experience... well, I know, and I understand in the book you say, you want to learn about your skill. Your skill's important, but you also wanted to know about your humanity. You needed to face your limitations, and by coming to America, it doesn't say a lot for the British medical setup, does it, really? I thought they were pretty, crash hot. But
they're very good, but you have to know people. And
good.
I had been born in Egypt, and I had had my younger years in Germany post-war.
Uh-huh.
And then I had my medical education in England. So I really didn't have a track record of knowing anybody in the medical profession in England. And it was more or less, if you get the right person who will train you, that'll be fine. But here in America, there was a systematic way of training surgeons.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, very much so. Who do you know? Whom do you know? What's it all about? So,
Yeah.
moving on, how did your experience in America's medical field differ from that in London?
Well, as I mentioned, in America, the residents were, first of all, older because they had gone to at least a 4-year college before going to medical school. So I imagine they were about 8 years older than I was. So by the time I came, I was just a 24-year-old guy. And I had to learn that competitiveness was very important here in this Harvard system, and that these young men were driven by ambition and innovation, whereas in England, ambition was sort of more or less low-key.
Right.
So I had to really become very uptight and, in spite of all that,
More competitive,
learn to be a good physician, above all, to patients. That was number one priority throughout my life, to treat patients, to make sure they had a good deal.
That was important because, as you did say before, in London, medicine was steeped in hierarchy, tradition, and a sense of formality. It's inherited from the British system. It valued precision, discipline, and detachment. But when you came to America, you found a very different world, faster, more competitive, often driven, as you say, by ambition and innovation. But at the end of the day, it pushed you beyond fatigue, right? I mean, to think independently, to speak up in environments where rank could not define one's worth. So profoundly, London taught you precision, but America taught you resilience. Would that be right?
That's absolutely correct. Because the hours we worked were 36 hours of a weekend and 110 hours a week. And as it says earlier in the book, there were surgical survival guides. And some of them are quite funny, if I may mention a couple of, namely, eat when you can and sleep when you can and read when you can. And we always thought that a good operation is better than good sex, and a bad operation is worse than cold pizza.
Okay. Now, I mean, ethics. Let's talk about ethics. They're a major part of the medical field. I'm sure they're still there. I mean, what are some of the most important ethical dilemmas that you faced? And for that matter, how did you overcome them?
Well, ethics usually arose when what had to be done at that moment was unclear. And my guiding light, my moral compass was do the best you can for the patient. That comes first. And I treated my patients as if they were my family members. So that ethical issues arise when there is uncertainty as to what should be done. A could be right, B could be right. What is in the best interest of the patient, and so on and so forth. And you gradually go through these scenarios, operation after operation, and you land up developing your own moral compass as to what is correct for the patient. But above all, ethics is rooted in being truthful. By truthful, first and foremost, to yourself. Don't hoodwink yourself. Don't imagine this could be something else. No, this is the story in front of you. You're going to face it, and you're going to deal with it to the best possible ability. And when the patient wakes up, you need to level with them. May I give you an example? We had a patient who was a Jehovah's Witness, and he was having cardiac surgery, and he did not want any blood. I asked him beforehand. He said, no blood. And I said, look, if your life's at stake, blood or no blood? He said, no blood. Fine. Huh. During the operation, that scenario came up. And my attending, a very well-known cardiac surgeon, said to the anesthetist, give him blood. And I said, sir, he did not want any. And he looked at me and said, yes, but give him blood. And post-operatively in the recovery room, I went to the patient and said, Mr. Jones, this is what happened. And to save you, we gave you 3 units of blood.
Right.
Expecting all hell to break
loose. Yeah, right. What happened?
All that. And he said, thank you very much. That was it.
So there you go. I mean, in the book, you're facing situations where the decision to operate or not to operate carries enormous consequences. And each case, as you share, forced you to weigh science against compassion, ego against humility. And you overcame dilemmas by reminding yourself of one simple truth, that the patient's welfare must always come first. Listening and reflecting and being honest. Oh, great, you're a compassionate soul. How did you find compassion during hardship?
Well, I think compassion, I've looked at that very carefully in my background. As I mentioned, I had been born in Egypt, which is a different society. And then when I was 4 years old, I was taken to post-war Germany in 1948, where we had no food. It was the coldest winter. I had very little clothes. I was living with my German grandparents rather than having left my Egyptian grandparents in Egypt. And they were in their late 60s, and they had these youngsters, my sister and I, hoisted on them. My parents just absconded to this day. Then I had to really realize that they were facing a difficult task raising us children. There were no books for children. There were no toys. We had no immediate clan of cousins as you do in Egypt, etc. Very isolated life. And so you learn that other people have problems. And if you want to get along, you have to try and understand their problem and put it in perspective of what you're dealing with. And so you develop a sense of compassion also by listening to a patient. And there's a story in my book where a very well-known fashion editor of a famous big Midwestern daily comes to Boston to have a lump in her breast looked at. And when I walk into her room to examine her, she's sitting in her bed in a mink bed jacket. And the whole room is smelling of Chanel number 5, and her husband is standing next to her in an immaculate suit with a fedora in his hand. And she says, then the professor comes in, and she asks the professor, "What are you going to do for me?" And he taps her on the shoulder and says, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of you." And when she wakes up, I was not involved in that operation. I was assisting on another case. When she wakes up, he has removed her entire left breast, totally deforming her. Now, as a fashion editor, that was her career. She was a person who was a former model, and she dressed immaculately. But the question was never asked, what does your breast mean to you? What is your job? How will my operation affect you?
Yes.
And these are very crucial discussions to have. Whether I did an amputation on a veteran or I did other operations, I always ask the patient and their family members, what is the significance of this operation to you? How will it change your life? How will you adapt? Because you have to listen to the patient. If you listen to the patient, they will tell you the importance of what they have and what they want you to do. And that's how you develop compassion. Yeah. You realize I can do the best for you given these limitations, and listening to you very carefully.
Well, of course, today with prosthetics and so on, it's not so bad. But then, going back, It's like the end of the world for somebody in a position like that, living
Yes,
a
she
life
did, in
like that.
fact. She kept in touch with me for about 18 months,
Yeah.
wrote letters,
Yeah.
and she
That's
lost
nice,
her
yeah.
job.
That's nice.
She lost her job.
That's a
and
shame.
I think-
She didn't sue you,
Yes.
though, or anything else, or the hospital? No.
I'm sorry?
She didn't sue you.
No, I was just a resident. I was doing...
You can't be
doing-
sued. It must have affected her terribly. She would have to get up again, her story itself. A lot of women went through that, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
It's great joys and great sorrows. I'm speaking with, it's the fourth volume in Michael M. Meguid's sweeping autobiographical series. And my special guest is Michael M. Meguid. We'll be right back.
For over 50 years, Daniel Roth has lived for that moment. A two-time Grammy Award winner, former publisher at Simon & Schuster, and executive at HarperCollins, he's helped countless writers turn ideas into art. Whether it's a novel, a screenplay, or a documentary, Daniel brings the experience of Hollywood and publishing together, helping creators find the story that truly connects. Now he's sharing that passion, teaching, guiding, and inspiring writers of all ages to make.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Roth. I'm an editor. I can help you find your story. Give me a call.
You're listening to Nothing Like a Good Book, and my gentleman, what a life he's led. I mean, confidentiality as a physician is very important in the medical field. So let me ask you this, Michael. How did you find a balance while writing about your experience and respecting the privacy of patients and colleagues?
Well, that's very critical. That's very important. The colleagues are of historical note. I mean, I can't change their names, neither the names of my professors, but I can omit mentioning their names, as in the case with the breast operation. But other cases, these were well-known titans and giants in the Harvard system that I cannot invent their names. This is not a novel. This is a recollection of how I trained and the factors that influenced me, that made me who I am today.
Right.
So yes, most patients have all patients have different names, and the circumstances have been changed and rearranged. And I was fortunate to have kept a personal journal throughout my life, and a diary. A diary was a day-to-day thing. A journal was more or less when I was free to write in it. And as surgeons, we have to keep a surgical logbook of all the operations we do, and whether you were the assistant or first surgeon or and so on and so forth.
I see.
And that is mandatory by the American College of Surgeons. And then later on, and as I became a little older, like a second-year resident, I got a camera, and I only photographed the pathology or X-rays or stuff like that, which helped me remind putting things together so that it is well researched. Nothing is concocted, but it is the truth as I see it. And in doing so, I've always asked myself, I hope I'm not doing any harm to a patient. If I could not pass that test, that story would not be included.
You mentioned earlier, we touched on Egypt and Germany, and that your childhood, in the book it says it shaped everything. Egypt gave you warmth, imagination, and a sense of wonder. And Germany taught you structure, survival, and discipline. So,
Yes.
Growing up in two cultures, what role do you think, in your childhood, in between Egypt and Germany, when you look back at it, are you grateful?
Yes. It's almost bringing me to tears, but looking back at it now, of course, I'm grateful. My parents, as all parents, did the very best they could for their children. But at the time you lived through it, to be abandoned at the age of 4 and to live with a Prussian grandfather who was a disciplinarian and ruled by the strap, and my loving, excuse me.
That's all right. I feel the empathy and the passion for your darling
German
one.
grandmother.
Your
She
grandmother.
was-
There's a special name for German grandmothers. How do you pronounce
Yes,
it?
Oma.
Oma.
O-M-A. Oma, yes.
That's right.
Right. And she was kind and warm.
Lovely. Yeah, I miss my Gemma, as I called her. She was originally from Manchester in England.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
where I went to grammar school.
Well, they came out on what was called in those days the 10-quid boat. And that's because, Australia needed immigrants desperately.
Yes,
And they sort of went to Canada first, and that lasted a day, and then they moved on.
Yes.
So we were all Melbourneites, It's a great country, Australia. But at the end of the day, that's where they settled. But that's what it was called. In fact, I think there was a documentary on PBS maybe last year, I can't remember, but it was all about the 10-quid boat. And I mean, pretty good to get from bloody England to Australia for 10 quid. You know what I mean? $10. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Look, how does your book emphasize, resilience and empathy? What's the biggest thing? What's your takeaway there?
Resilience, I have come to the conclusion, is when you're faced with difficulties in life, you can't just quit. You have to look at it and have the courage to face failure and try again, and to push through the situation as best as you can. In other words, if I was dead tired or an operation had to be done, there was no ifs, ands, or buts as to what had to be done. And the families suffered from this. I mean, there was always time. Time was always an issue. You came home late. You sometimes missed your children's key milestone in upbringing.
Yeah.
But that is the price I was willing to pay for.
Well, it is. You got all hours, all sorts of things, and many people have had to do that. It's good old mommy that brings up the child, because someone's got to bring home the bacon.
Yes.
And fortunately, your wonderful career you chose, or were led to choose, helping and saving souls and God knows what else, demands, diversified hours. And you haven't got a lot of say in that. Look, I'll only work here if you'll give me 10 to 4, Monday to Thursday. I play golf on Fridays. Look, before we go, Michael, this book is written for your grandchildren, right? What do you hope they and other readers will take away from it?
Some of the issues we've already touched on, but let me just tell you. First of all, it's an immigrant story. I started writing the series when I had a serious heart attack, and I wasn't sure I was going to survive. And when I survived it and I was in hospital, I realized that my children, and then any future grandchildren, because I started this in 2009, the whole series, would really know very little about my upbringing. So that's why I wrote it. And I want people to understand that it is an immigrant story, and it also has an emotional cost of saving lives. And there's a balance between science, faith, and humanity in medicine. And that one's childhood trauma leads to adult resilience. And that the sacrifices that are made by doctors and their family are, in my opinion, worth it. And in fact, my son has become a surgeon, and my granddaughter is heading in that way. And one point I would like to just make is that one of the biggest saviors when I came to America were the nurses. The nurses are a fund of wisdom, of experience, of motherliness and caring. They care both about the patient, and if you are good and kind to them, they will care about the resident, and they'll make sure that you get another 10 minutes sleep at night. And I always went to them and said, look, this is the scenario that we're facing. What would you suggest? Not that I didn't know the book work, but I wanted to know, in this American culture, how do you face it?
Right.
And the nurses were very magnanimous. They came up with ideas, they came up with cultures, and they shared things with me. And I never regretted ever listening to them. And to this day, I meet them, and they still remember this old man.
Yeah, that's lovely. Well, you wanted your grandchildren and every reader to understand. I think the point you made is that you want them to understand love, integrity, perseverance.
Yes.
They matter. They matter far more than recognition or comfort, right? And if they learn to meet adversity with courage and to treat others with compassion, then I think your book will have done its work.
Correct. Thank you so much for beautifully summarizing it.
It's been a pleasure, Doc. Dr. Michael M. Meguid, ladies and gentlemen, great joys, great sorrows. Now, one can get this where? Where can we buy these book 4? In fact, where can all of them be bought?
They are available on
Amazon.
Yes, because when I started to publish, it was the COVID era, and I could not, for the life of me, find an agent. Nobody wanted to meet with anybody.
No, tell me about it. Yeah. I was running a very successful business with my clients in interviewing and podcasting and so on. And when COVID hit, I even put plastic shields up, but nobody would come to the studio. And I couldn't figure out why, you know. No, it was a rough time for everybody, but some good things have come out of COVID, you know.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So listen,
that's how one has to look at life. There are good things around it, and you have to look for them.
That's right. A silver cloud around every lining, or a silver lining around every cloud, as they say. Now, listen, Amazon's going to find you anywhere else, like Barnes & Noble?
Yes, it's going in those directions now.
Okay, Barnes & Noble. And do you have a website, per se, where people can go directly, click on the link, and then maybe buy from that site or read more about you?
They will direct you on my website, which is Michael Meguid, all one word, Meguid, .com. And there is a sample chapters from each of the books.
Fabulous.
And you can look at it and get directly to Amazon that way.
That's the way it works. Fabulous. HTTPS, www, whatever, michaelmeguid.com is the place to go, ladies and gentlemen. michaelmeguid.com. Michael, all one sentence, Meguid, .com. And, look at the site, click on the link, and that'll take you to Amazon anyway. All right. Thank you, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hope we have you again one day. All the best with this book 4, too.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a wonderful interview. I appreciate your attention.
All right. Goodbye now.
Goodbye.